tight versus wide preflop ranges. Preflop is where you print or leak before the flop even hits. In online poker games, especially when multi-tabling, your decisions have to be repeatable, fast, and grounded in expected value. That starts with building tight and wide ranges on purpose, not by habit. Most players talk about range width like it is style. It is not. It is math plus context. Your open size, the rake, the positions, and who is left to act decide how many hands you can profitably enter with. Then player types decide how much you should deviate. What tight and wide really mean. Tight ranges are high-quality groups of hands that realize equity well and do not suffer when called. Think more big cards, stronger suited hands, and pairs that can withstand pressure. Wide ranges include more marginal hands, hands that rely on position, fold equity, and post-flop skill to turn a small edge into money. They are not random hands, they are hands selected because they interact well with boards or block strong holdings. The mistake is widening because you feel bored or tightening because you fear post-flop. Your goal is to match range width to the expected value of entering the pot. The real drivers of range width. When you decide how tight or wide to play, you are answering one question. How often does this hand make money given what happens next? Here are the big variables that decide that. First, position. Wider in late position, tighter in early position. Position boosts equity realization. Out of position, you lose expected value by checking more, folding more, and getting pushed off equity. Second, who is left to act. This is the silent killer. A cutoff open looks great until you remember the button is an aggressive regular and the blinds 3-bet a ton. Your effective expected value drops before you click a button. Third, rake. Online rake punishes small edges. Marginal calls, limp calling, and low equity realization hands get taxed hard. Rake does not dictate everything, but it absolutely pushes you toward tighter pre-flop choices in many pools. Fourth, stack depth. At 100 big blinds and deeper, suited hands and hands that can make nutty combos go up in value, but only if you can realize the equity. Deep stacks do not mean you should splash around out of position. Fifth, table composition. Against nits, you can widen opens and steal. Against sticky callers, you tighten your value threshold and cut weak offsuit junk. Against aggressive 3-betters, you defend with hands that block top ranges and play well in 3-bet pots. Tight ranges, when and why they win. Tight ranges are not scared money. They are often the highest expected value choice when the environment is hostile. If you open and face frequent 3-bets, or the blinds defend correctly, your weakest opens become negative. Expected value fast. Here is the logic. Pre-flop expected value comes from a mix of immediate fold equity and post-flop realization. When either of those collapses, you tighten. A hand like King-9 offsuit might look playable in theory from the button, but if the big blind is a strong regular who defends wide and check raises well, your realization falls off a cliff. In tough online pools, tight ranges also reduce the number of marginal post-flop spots you must solve while multi-tabling. That matters because misplays with thin holdings cost more than the small edge you were hoping to gain by opening extra hands. Wide ranges, how to widen without punting. Wide does not mean loose passive. Wide means you are entering pots with a clear plan for how you win. Usually that plan is to leverage position, pressure-capped ranges, and take down lots of medium pots. To widen responsibly, prioritize hands that do at least one of these things. First, realize equity well in position. Suited aces, suited broadways, suited connectors. They can check back, call, and still have strong turns and rivers. Second, make nutted hands. Nut flush potential and strong straights matter. Second, best hands are how wide ranges lose big pots. Third, block value. Hands like ace-5, suited, reduce the chance villain has pocket aces, ace-king, and ace-queen. That improves your steal and 3-bet bluff expected value. The hands you cut first when tightening are dominated offsuit hands like King-10, Queen-9 offsuit, Jack-8 offsuit. They flop second best too often, and rake eats the small wins you get when nothing happens. Common range with mistakes I want you to stop. If you fix these, your win rate jumps without learning a single flop strategy. First, set mining as a default plan. Calling raises pre-flop just to flop a set is hope poker. In real online games, you do not always get paid, boards kill action, and rake punishes spec calls. If you call a small pair, you need implied odds plus a post-flop plan beyond praying. Second, overcalling the blinds. Defending wide from the big blind is normal, but wide calling without a plan is a leak. You need to know which hands can continue versus common, itsy, bet sizes, and textures. Third, opening wide into active players. If the players behind you 3-bet and squeeze, your open range must tighten or your 4-bet and call ranges must sharpen. You cannot open wide and then fold to every 3-bet. That is lighting blinds on fire. Fourth, confusing playable with profitable. Many hands can be played. Far fewer win money after rake and mistakes. A simple framework you can use today. Use this as your day-to-day pre-flop checklist. It keeps you from drifting into random range width. First, step 1, identify your position and the positions left to act. Second, step 2, label the players behind you. Tight, sticky, aggressive, 3-better, recreational. Third, step 3, choose a baseline. Tight baseline when out of position or when strong players are behind. Wide baseline when in position versus passive blinds. Fourth, step 4. Decide your response tree. If you open wide, you need enough continues. Versus 3-bets. If not, open tighter. Range width and response strategy are one unit. If you widen without building a defend plan, you lose money even if your opens look standard. Hand scenario, the wide open that prints. Game, 6 max online cash, 100 big blinds. Hero, button with 8 of spades. 7 of spades, cutoff folds. Hero opens to 2.2 big blinds, small blind folds, big blind calls. Flop, 9 of hearts, 6 of clubs, 2 of spades, big blind checks. This is a great example of widening correctly. Your hand has a gut shot plus backdoor flush. More importantly, your range contains all the overpairs, strong 9x, and big suited hands. Big blind has a lot of low pairs and random floats. You have the range advantage and position, so you can apply pressure. Action. You see bet small, around 25 to 33% pot. Big blind calls. Turn. Queen of diamonds. Big blind checks again. Now you keep telling the same story. That queen improves your perceived range a ton, and it does very little for big blind's check call range. You fire again with a sizing that stresses one pair hands around 60 to 75% pot. You are not barreling because you might get there. You are barreling because your wide button range has credible strong hands, and this run out creates folds. When big blind folds, you win with 0 showdown value. When big blind calls, you still have outs, and your river decisions stay cleaner because you chose a hand that can improve to a strong holding. This is how wide ranges create expected value in position without spewing. Putting it together. Tight versus wide is not a personality quiz. It is an engineering problem. You widen when position, fold equity, and post-flop leverage are on your side. You tighten when rake, aggression behind, and poor realization make marginal hands unprofitable. If you want one guiding principle, it is this: build ranges that let you continue. Every time you open a hand that cannot defend versus the likely counterplay, you have created an expected value leak before the flop even lands. Key takeaway: tight or wide is an expected value decision. You tighten when players behind can punish you, when you will be out of position, or when rake makes marginal edges disappear. You widen when you have position, passive players behind, and a clear response plan versus 3-bets. Do not enter pots with hands that cannot continue. Your pre-flop range and your defend strategy must match. Now let's test your edge. Question 1. According to the article, what is the single core question you're answering when deciding how tight or wide to play pre-flop? Answer: How often does this hand make money given what happens next? Explanation: range width is framed as an expected value decision based on what will occur after you enter the pot, not a personal style choice. Question 2. Name 2 real drivers that generally push you toward tighter pre-flop choices in many online pools. Answer: rake and being out of position, early position, or poor equity realization. Explanation: the article explains that rake punishes small edges and that being out of position lowers equity realization, both of which reduce expected value for marginal opens and calls. Question 3. When widening responsibly, what are the 3 hand qualities the article says you should prioritize? Answer: hands that 1. Realize equity well in position, 2. Can make nutted hands, and 3. Block value. Explanation: the article lists these as the filters that keep wide ranges profitable rather than loose passive. Question 4. In the simple framework, what does step 4 tell you to decide before you choose to open wide? Answer: your response tree, specifically whether you have enough continues versus 3 bets. If not, open tighter. Explanation: the article emphasizes that range width and your defend and continue plan must function as one unit. Question 5. In the button versus big blind hand scenario, what flop C bet size does the article recommend, and what turn bet size does it suggest after big blind checks again on the Queen of Diamonds turn? Answer: flop C bet small, about 25 to 33% pot, then bet bigger on the turn, about 60 to 75% pot. Explanation: the small flop bet leverages range advantage, and the larger turn bet tells the same story while stressing one pair hands on a card that favors the button's perceived range. Study hard, play smart. That's it for now. I'll see you in the next lesson.